What's up, everybody? So it's been like 3 days since the video that I made that I titled The Valley of Decision. And you know, it was a rough 3 days. And the afternoon after I made that video, it really got to a place of being like, okay, so what do I do? Do I give up as far as I've come in the last 10 years, or do I give it all up and go back to who I was, and let the old me come out and just, let him have his way with things? Or do I keep it locked up and just lay down and die, and just slowly let the stress of the death of this relationship that I've been in, that I care so much for, do I just, do I let the death of that lead to the death of me? Or do I, trust that what God has been pushing me to and leading me to, that there's a plan and a purpose in it, and step forward in that? And basically had a conversation with this person that my relationship with is ending, and sitting there seeing them, like, in the recent weeks, just develop and like garner this hate for me, and just this attitude, and treating me like I'm their enemy. And they even went so far as to tell me that, like, you're my enemy now, and it didn't register, it didn't stick, I even told him, I was like, I didn't realize that that's where we were at, because, for me to be somebody's enemy, I have to be conspiring and planning your downfall, and hoping for your downfall, and actively pursuing ways to bring about your downfall. And that's not ever where I was at. I want nothing but the best for this person. I want them to be happy. I want them to be able to grow in whatever direction they feel like they need to grow in. I don't want anything bad to happen to this person at all. And so, like, the idea that you see me as your enemy and I don't feel the same makes this even harder, because that means that now everything that I'm doing in a state of vulnerability, in a state of trust, I have to accept that you're probably going to use it against me in some kind of way. Even if it's just simply to, like, crack jokes at my expense to other people, whatever the case may be. Like, I have to accept that now, putting my vulnerability and my feelings on display to you, the person that I've trusted, to be this way with, the person that over the years so many different times has said it's okay to be vulnerable with me, it's okay to be this way with me, like, I'll never, use this to hurt you. And the reality of them saying, like, you're my enemy now, and the reality meaning that, any type of vulnerability with this person is now a weakness. And still choosing after that to have that vulnerability on display, knowing that it's, there's probably laughs being had at my expense, and, all these different things, and having to deal with that at any other time in my life would have absolutely resulted in me being like, okay, this is why I told you, like, don't ask me to be vulnerable, don't ask to see this side of me, because sooner or later you'll use it against me. And then when you do, my first instinct is to make you pay for it in every way that I possibly can. And I couldn't bring myself to do it this time. Like, I didn't have it in me. For one, like, I don't want to see this person struggle, hurt, suffer. Like, I don't want anything bad to happen to this person. I want this person to have, like, the very best that they can possibly have. you know. And so the idea of me actively pursuing anything that would stop them from having that just made me feel terrible. And it was just like, I don't have that in me for you, you know. I hate the fact that you see me as an enemy, but I can't view you as an enemy. It's not there. I don't have it, you know. And knowing that and watching them actively like become more and more filled with anger and disgust and just the desire to attack me, you know, in moments where like I'm trying to speak to the vulnerable part of them, because we have this relationship where we have been vulnerable together, and that's the side of you that I'm trying to reach, and that's not the side that I'm getting. And watching them develop that was really painful and really difficult. And in the time period of becoming fully aware that like they're gonna see me as their enemy forever, you know, there's no amount of anything that I can do that's going to turn that off, because they're the one that actually decides when and if that ever stops. You know, I can do things that like maybe make them feel like they don't have to, but they're the one that has to make that decision, not me. And you know, going to God and being like, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do here. You know, like you put Hosea in front of me, and you know, I thought that was the blueprint, but like now I'm starting to wonder, you know, was it more literal than the direction that I thought it was? And being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Like, you know, my love for this person is at such a depth at this point that I don't see myself being productive, progressive, anything positive in this current state, you know. And I legitimately feel like I'm about to go into a place of just slowly dying, and sooner or later something will happen that will lead to my actual death, and I don't want that. You know, I've got kids, like I've got all these different reasons to want to live, and the last thing I want to do is go slowly die somewhere, because I've got such a pain inside me that I can't turn off, that it is consuming me. And I, you know, said that prayer, woke up the next morning, and for the first time in 7-8 weeks, I could breathe. My chest did not have this raw, open wound feeling inside it anymore, and just a state of, you know, acceptance, and that we're not going to lay down and die, and we're not going to go back to who we were. We're going to take a step forward, and there's a plan and a purpose for that. Well, during all of this time of like, you know, the things going wrong and this relationship crumbling, despite me trying, you know, in every way possible to explain the depth of my feelings, I have some friends that I work with, and they were starting to notice that something is definitely up with me, because like I'm losing weight, I look like I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, you know, we're working outside 90-degree heat, and like I'm not even drinking water, because like I don't care, you know, like life I feel like I'm suffocating, and I feel like I'm bleeding out. And so like the idea of doing anything that might preserve my life just did not sound like anything I wanted to do. And they kept hounding me about coming out, and I just kept putting it off. And for the first time yesterday, because I didn't have those sensations and those feelings, and I did not feel just broken, I decided to go out. And when I got there, I, you know, got to talking to them, and you know, the main guy that had been inviting me is a guy that I've become really good friends with over the past few months, and he was like, you know, you don't have to tell me anything, dude, like I already know there's only 3 things in the world that can do what's been happening to you to a man, and that's the death of your mama, the death of your child or a broken heart. And I've known all along. For a minute there, I was worried that you relapsed, and I was thinking about drug testing you, but I was afraid you'd get pissed at me if I drug tested you, so I figured I'd wait it out and just keep trying to get you to come out with us. But, you know, I knew that you were going through something, because, like, we've seen it. And, you know, got to talking to him, and, you know, he asked me, because I told him, you know, this person feels like I haven't been, you know, leading our household, like that, you know, I've been emotionally unavailable for everybody for years now, you know, and that just all the different things that, you know, were listed as reasons why my partner was not comfortable going on with me, you know. And he was like, well, you know, answer me this. Did you hear what she said? I was like, absolutely. Like, from the moment this all started, I was listening. And he was like, okay, did you apologize? It was like, with everything I had, like, it's as deeply as I possibly could. And he was like, did you give her a game plan on how you plan to fix it? And I was like, to the best of my ability, you know, based on what she had told me, like, yeah, I 100% had a game plan that, you know, I intended on implementing the second that she was ready to pick up our relationship. And he was like, well, if you gave her all that and she didn't take to it, then the moment you gave her all that, it stopped being on you. It stopped being anything to do with you, and everything to do with whether or not they can forgive and be comfortable and move forward. And if they can't, there's nothing you can do about that in any given second that's going to solve that problem for you or them. And, you know, it kind of brought the whole thing full spectrum as to what the situation was, and realizing that, like, you know, this is the point we've come to. And as crappy as it is, and as much as it sucks, and as much as it breaks my heart, that, like, I have to, you know, accept the death of this relationship, there's nothing that I can physically do about it in any 1 second that's going to fix it, you know. And that, combined with the fact that there were multiple people that I work with at this restaurant. Apparently they go there 3-4 times a week after work, but multiple people there, all of them aware that, like, there's something going on with Zach, and we need to figure out what it is, because he looks like he's crashing and burning quickly. That made a huge impact, because as a general rule, I don't think that people ever really care about, like, what's going on with me, you know. I don't typically talk to people about my problems, because over the years, the one thing I've learned is, like, when you talk to people about your problems, you know, and things that bother you, people have a tendency to say what they would do based on the information that you've given them. And so it's usually destructive information or reaffirming information, you know, which, in situations where you're trying to make life decisions, the last thing you want is a yes man. You know, the last thing you want is somebody that's going to sit there and say, you're 100% right, you're doing this all the right way, you know, do you? You know, that's the last thing you want. And so, like, I haven't really been able to talk to anybody about what's been going on, because everybody that I've tried to talk to, that's been their position, is that, you know, I need to do A, B, C, D, E, and, like, it's all stuff that, like, I don't want to do. It's all stuff that, like, I don't want to do that to this person. I don't want to be this way with that person, you know. And that, combined with them dogging on this person, and, like, I'm not going to let somebody else dog on them. Like, this has been my best friend for 10 years. Like, it's not happening. Like, so, you know, everybody that I talk to, it's, you know, they're talking crap and telling me what I should do with it, and it's not productive for me, you know. And so, like, I've been in this place where I can't talk to anybody. And then, you know, going out and realizing that, like, I've got this whole group of people that I didn't realize I had, that, like, I can sit there and talk about where I messed up at and where I, could have done better at, and they're gonna sit there and actually not, talk trash. They may talk trash to me, but, like, as far as what I did wrong, but that it's not gonna be that yes man scenario where they're just saying what they think I want to hear, which meant a lot. And then on top of that, there was this other person that was there that, like, up until last night, I didn't even know that, like, I ever crossed their mind. Had no reason to think I did, but, because of them becoming aware of my situation, I guess they felt more comfortable, like, talking to me in that setting, which was not expecting, and just, the reality that to some degree I have some sort of life that's already waiting for me, and a fairly decent group of people that, like, I can go to when things start getting tough, so that I'm not going into this mental prison and I'm not just laying down and dying. And that was huge, to realize that, like, God's had this thing working out all along, and, regardless of what the final outcome is, the second that I came to the place of accepting that there's some things I can't just fix in an instant, and some things that I may never be able to fix, I don't have to just let it kill me either, and so I'm in this place now where it's like, what's done is done. I can't fix it in any 1 second, but what I can do is start moving forward and try to make sure that, as I move forward, whatever I do leads to bigger and better for myself and, the people that I care about. And, if people that I care about want to be a part of that, great. If they don't, then, it is what it is. I can't fix that, but I also don't have to let it destroy me or turn me back into who I was either, and that's been a huge thing. So here to say today that in the molding process and in the breaking process, when you see God start cracking stuff and twisting stuff and breaking you and taking stuff and doing that, and your first instinct is to throw it all away, and go back to who you were beforehand because you think that's gonna fix it. Have the patience, and when you finally see something that looks like a step forward, take it. Because when you take it, that's when you're gonna start seeing that God's got something going on. And as long as you keep moving in the direction that has been uncomfortable and not fun the entire time, sooner or later you're gonna come to a place where things are okay and you're gonna be happy. And that's about all I got for today. Later.